Well, Dave, we've had an awesome time kind of going through the Seahawks top 50 of all time, getting a chance to talk to a number of these guys, some of which have been your teammate. But there was one guy, Dave, that I said, you cannot put him on while I'm out last week. I was on vacation. I said, you cannot bring this guy on until I get back because I get such a kick out of him. And he is with us on the Emerald Queen Casino Sportsbook Hotline. You know him, you love him, the legend that is Dave Krieg. Dave, how are you, man?
I'm doing fine, Bob. How you doing?
Doing great. And first, let's just say congratulations. One of the 50 greatest to ever put on that Seahawks jersey, that Seahawks uniform. Give us a sense of what that's like.
It's quite an honor. You're sitting back here. You think back to where you started off in high school and little college I went to. First time you fly in a plane, and then you're making in the Ring of Honor. And now you're one of the top 50 players that played in the last 50 years. Quite a deal.
Hey, Dave, thanks for letting us introduce you and everything and not just start talking this time. I really appreciate that. It's very professional of you.
Oh, I don't do this as often as you do, Dave. I haven't been interviewed in like years now, so.
This is the last time we interviewed him.
Yeah. That's probably the last time I talked to somebody, on the phone like this.
Well, Dave, tell us about that. You went to Milton College. And then you said, I think when you got drafted or they signed you and brought you out to Seattle, that was the first time that you ever flew on a plane?
Yeah. Do you think everybody that plays in the NFL is drafted like you were, like a second rounder? Not everybody went to Stanford and played linebacker there and was drafted in the second round. I was a free agent. I wasn't drafted, Dave. And
well,
the first
I
time
am proud that I still have an alma mater. I mean, like I thought,
Well, again, it makes it even more just unbelievable that a guy could make it into the top 50 that doesn't even have an alma mater. You know what I'm saying?
I know.
I mean, if you look at it from that standpoint. Anyway, Tony White just called me. I did a little thing with him, and he said, "Is it true that you didn't fly on a plane?" I said, "Yeah, my dad dropped me off at the Central Wisconsin Airport, a little plane, to the Minneapolis Airport. Then I went to Seattle, and then we were practicing on that beautiful, just immaculate fields, nice white stripes on them, coming from Milton after about, you know how that is, Dave, after about 4 or 5 weeks, it's just a dirt strip down the middle, and you practice on it,
Yeah.
And so when you go to Seattle, we're on the shores of Lake Washington. It was just beautiful, and that's what I remember. And staying at the Bellevue Holiday Inn, I thought that was amazing because we didn't really stay at hotels at Milton. We bussed all our games.
Well, and so 19 years you played in this league, Dave. And I don't know, was there ever a point prior to that where there were years towards the end where you're like, all right, this is it. This is the final year.
No. I would have kept playing. I wanted to get at least 20. And Jeff Fisher kept me at Tennessee for a couple of years. Steve McNair was a pretty tough guy. He didn't get hurt too much. But I wanted to get I could have kept playing. I love practicing. I love playing. I mean, that's all I did was play sports growing up, and I could have kept playing for as long as somebody would have kept me. That's what I would have done.
Well, Dave, did you ever think about either doing? I know you did broadcast some games, and actually on TV as well. And, yeah. So, I mean, did you want to stay around the game, or at what point were you like? Because I don't know about you, I never wanted to coach just because I saw what those guys went through.
Yeah.
But
it's tough.
What about for you?
Coaching, I would not have been an option. I mean, once you're playing for that many years, that's probably the last thing you want to do is go out there and stand out there some more for another 20 years. So I just didn't feel like I had that in me. And, when I retired, I did NFL Europe a couple of times. I went over there 2 different years. I thought that was pretty cool. And I would have got into the broadcasting thing. But then the kids were at an age where I felt like I had to be around them more. So I just decided to go that route and just, stay home and spend as much time as I could with the kids.
Yeah. Dave, when people ask you about your career and, did you play this guy and what was this like? What was that like? Is there one moment that stands out to you, whether it's one season, one game, one play that your mind always goes to when you reflect on your career?
Oh, man. For as a team thing, winning the first playoff game and then going to Miami, that was pretty cool. But I think, I have a unique perspective of being a quarterback is if you're good, you have to have a lot of good people around you. You have to have good receivers. You have to have good running backs. You have to have good linemen. then you have to have a good defense. So your performance is predicated on how everybody else does. Yes, you can elevate their level of play like a Joe Montana can and a John Elway and a Marino and guys like that. But the thing that stands out to me is just the selflessness of offensive linemen. Tell them a play, they're going to go up there and block, and they're never going to touch the ball all game, probably all season, And to me, it's just the selflessness of it. And then what doesn't get a lot of credit in 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, Dave, when did you show up, Dave? 88 or was it earlier? 87,
yeah,
right. And we had good defenses, and Dave will say this too, like guys that made it, Keith Butler, some of the older guys that were first there taught him a lot of lessons, but our defense with Ken Easley and John Harris and Dave Brown and, Kerry Justin and Shelton Robinsons and Vic Miners, we wouldn't be here without guys like that. So that's what I think about. It's more of a team thing for me, even though the quarterback gets a lot of credit, but you couldn't get any credit if you didn't have a defense and offense. Norm Johnson kicking field goals, special teams, Freddie Young and all those guys, Rufus, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, and Dave, I thought they did a great job. I don't know how much you've looked at the list, but I thought they did a really good job of, including each era, because maybe a lot of people don't know who Keith Butler is. And Butts absolutely deserved to be there. And then, like Brian Millard and Edwin Bailey. And, I thought that list really kind of, because, for a lot of young people that are voting or whatever, they may not know who, Brian Millard is.
They would have no idea. And to see it on film or watch it on YouTube, it doesn't even do justice the way it is. But, it brings up another guys like Ron Mattis, Robert Pratt, you had Blair Bush. You remember all those guys.
Sure.
I'm glad they got some guys from the, 76 era on to the 80 era, Jake Boogie and Joe Nash, another free agent. I'm so glad Joe made it. I still think he should be in the Ring of Honor, but Joe Nash has played the most downs. I still believe more downs or more snaps than any Seahawks ever. I may be wrong, but I'm going to stand on that one.
Hey, Dave, what was it like? I mean, you spent your first 12 seasons with the Seahawks, and then you went on to Kansas City and Detroit, Arizona, Chicago, Tennessee. And in those years, I would imagine you faced a lot of former teammates. And Dave Wyman always talks about a moment where you tried to shift at the line. You kind of wink like, I almost got you, and winking at him, whatever. But what was that like going up against guys that you came up with?
It was different. You ended up just playing the game. It's like playing pickup basketball. You play against this guy and that guy, and you don't really think about who's behind it, although you know them by name. I know when I first went to Kansas City, I knew Joe and Dave and the defensive guys, and then we kept playing. Dave went to Denver, and I played at Arizona, and we played each other there. But you just play the game. He did like to goof around a little bit, but I was thinking I had too much to think about. I didn't have time for that. It was funny, and I'll tell you another thing. There's one thing that really stands out to me, and now that I think about it, is Derek sacked me that 7.5 times. I think it was in 1990. And people talk about, they go, Derek Thomas sacked you 7.5 times. I'm like, yeah. And then Dan Salamua and Neil Smith and Dino Hackett sacked me about 4 or 5 more times. It was like more than just 7. But I got to go to Kansas City, and then we went up to River Falls, which is in the University of Wisconsin River Falls, for training camp. And then there's Derek and I playing golf, and Salamua and Joe Montana and Marcus Allen. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. We're in Wisconsin. I got Marcus Allen, Neil Smith, Derek Thompson. It was just so cool. We were like friends. It's like everybody respects who you are, but you got to go out there and do a job. And it was cool to make friends with a guy that, him and I both were players of the week for that game. Can you imagine that the guy on the other team was the defensive player of the week, and because we won the game, I was the offensive player of the week. I don't think I've ever seen that happen.
Yeah. The other thing, Dave, I think the touchdown you threw to Scansy, first of all, we hadn't won there in a decade, right?
Oh, my God. If our defense didn't stop them on 3 plays, 3 timeouts, and then we did that drill where, like on Saturday, okay, let's throw this there, throw it there, and we're going to end zone and score. And every time on Saturday it works. And this time it worked during a game. It was the most coolest thing. But if you guys didn't stop them, Dave, we'd have never got that opportunity.
Yeah, well, I think you ducked a sack on the play that you threw to Scansy, and that was one of the most memorable games for me because, that place just went dead quiet when you did that.
It was so quiet. Yep, I was on the ground. Neil hit me after Derek had my left hip, and I did a little swing thing. I don't know what it was. I really think he was just exhausted from tackling me all day, and he was worn out. But I whipped him, and then I looked. I thought, if I can throw it fast enough and hard enough, and Jim Scans jumped in the air and caught it, and it was, you're right, Dave, it was the most quietest, and we were the happiest guys. We were the only happy people in that whole place. And then Norm had to still kick the extra point to win. But that was the coolest, one of the coolest. Remember we went to the airport, and Chuck said, you know, guys were sitting out the bar, Reggie, of course, and then we had the whole team was sitting out there, then Chuck took care of it. That was a great trip, you know. That was just awesome. That was Dave, cool. I know you didn't. Sorry, Dave. Excuse me, but I just want to interrupt for this reason. You know that good feeling we had there in Kansas City? I know, I want to say this. But the other cool feeling we had was, yes, we won that first playoff game against Denver, but now we fly all the way from Seattle down to Miami. The plane leaves late because of some black box thing. We get there at 4 or 5 in the morning. Practice Saturday. We go out there, play Sunday. We win. As good as we felt at Kansas City, Dave, that Miami victory was unbelievable. Old Elmer Nordstrom, the original owner, was in the locker room. Dave Brown, God bless Dave Brown. He's the consummate pro. He stood up, gave a game ball. He goes, I haven't had one of these in a while, but he gave it to Chuck Knox for winning the game, and Elmer Nordstrom was in there, and Kitty, his wife, was around. That was so cool. That was the coolest time.
Yeah, and then you guys go to L.A., right? And that's the AFC
yeah. I don't really want to
game.
talk about that. I don't want to talk about that. That game, I couldn't have played a worse game. I think I threw just as many interceptions as it was just the worst game at the worst time. It's funny how that works, but that one bugs me more than anything.
Okay, well, I guess we won't talk about
that. Let's not talk about that because it'll get bad quick.
We'll just talk about the bright spots, Dave. We're speaking with Dave Krieg, one of the 50 greatest Seahawks ever, is joining us here with Wyman and Bob, Seattle Sports on 710. And Dave, I always tell Dave Wyman, one of my first experiences in this business was standing on the sidelines when the Seahawks were playing the Miami Dolphins in the Kingdome. And I was just walking around carrying batteries for James Lofton's battery pack for his headset. But I remember standing there when Dan Marino came walking off the field, and he was screaming at his O-line, and his face was beet red. Were you ever that guy in a game where you're getting sacked left and right 7.5 times by Derek Thomas? Did you ever light up your...
No. Sometimes you would, but it just didn't make any sense to me that I'm going to yell for these guys that are working their butts off for me. But sometimes in the huddle, I would say things if guys were starting to get snipey, a little bit. I can imagine if Dave Wyman was in the huddle, we'd have to call timeout. Well, I think we should do this. And, last time we did that, it didn't work. So why are we going to do it again? I can just hear it, And so you got the linemen in there, and all the linemen I had, every darn from Sewickley to Ron Mattis to, all them guys, Dave. They were awesome. We would bicker at each other every once in a while, and then sometimes they'd say throw it away or something like that, and then I'd hear Chuck saying it. I'm like, where does it say in the playbook I should drop back and just throw it to the sideline? Where the hell is that play? I just never made any. Throw it away. Like, really? I'm back here. Throw it away. I don't even have my feet set. I've got 3 guys on my legs and arm. I'm supposed to throw it away. What the hell? Anyway.
Hey, Dave, I know this is probably an easy answer, but is Steve Largent the best player? And if he is, who else kind of ranks just, offensive guys or even defensive guys? You mentioned Jake, Joe, and Jeff. I remember Jacob Green getting up before a game going, I'm going to get 3 sacks. And he goes out and gets 3 sacks. And, he was amazing. But other than Largent, is there anybody kind of an underdog like you that –
Yeah. For sure, a guy that's not an underdog, but Kurt Warner, I would say, Joe Nash, I would say, John Harris didn't play for us for a long time, but they were culture guys that kept the locker rooms. But Kurt Warner, Chuck gets a lot of credit because he came in there in '83, and he traded some draft picks to get Kurt Warner, and that is the guy that really turned our franchise around. You have to have a top 5, 10 defense, which we had, I'd say, from '83 till even after you were there, Dave, 88, 89, 88, maybe 89. But anyway, we had great defenses. But Kurt Warner was the guy that kept us. If the passing game wasn't working, Kurt could get 6 yards here, 8 yards there. I remember the game we won 51-48 against Kansas City Chiefs in the Kingdome. Kurt had 200 yards, and I bet he had 60 of them in the overtime. And he's the guy that really turned our franchise. It's a guy that when Reggie came there, he would look at the schedule down at Showalters and Cheney. I remember this in 1983. Well, we're going to beat this team. We're going to beat that team. We're going to beat that team for scheduling us. This one might be close. We're going to, and then he pretty soon had us at like 10-6 or something. We went 9-7 that year. But Kurt Warner gave us the physical ability to believe in ourselves just because of the way he ran, he played, he was selfless. It wasn't all about – it was just about, how many yards can we get and helps the team. That's one guy that I'd like to pick out. Steve was great. He was a great receiver. But when you have a running back, you start to incorporate the whole team, the offensive line and everybody else, and the receivers have to block for him and all that. But Kurt Warner doesn't get enough credit for what he did for the city of Seattle. That's what I think.
Hey, Dave, you got to come out for this thing. I mean, I think it's the Tampa Bay game, and I think
October 5th, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you're acting like
hopefully...
I'm not coming. Of course I'm coming to it. What makes you think I'm not coming?
Okay, well, I just want to make sure that you're going to be there, and I'm
in the top 50 of the 50 players. That you think I'm just going to stay here and fish and go deer hunting? What the hell?
Yeah, I actually did think that.
I was thinking, yeah, you'll be out there
Dave,
for a few minutes.
if you need a place to stay, I will get you a room at the Holiday Inn. Okay.
I'll take your word on that. I might do that.
Okay.
Oh, he is Dave Krieg, one of the 50 greatest to ever wear a Seahawks uniform. He's been our guest here with Wyman and Bob. And Dave, it's always a pleasure, man. I really appreciate you coming on. And I went to Wyman. I said, why don't you see if you can't get Dave Krieg on? And he said, Bob, I'm going to see if I can get him on. So he made it happen.
Bob, that's perfect. That's perfect. But, hey, Dave, in all seriousness, Bob and Dave, the Seahawks fans, like when I come back to Wisconsin, my buddies know me. I play golf with some of my high school buddies, my college buddies. We're having a little reunion at Milton College this September 19th.
Nice.
There's a team the year before was undefeated, so we're going to have a big deal. We're going to go bowling and golf and all that. But they don't know that my name's in the Ring of Honor, my friends and all that. But when I go back to Seattle, the fans of Seattle, they really support, probably like other teams, but not. It's different with Seattle. The fans really that they take to their own. If you play for the Seahawks, they're such great fans. I can't say enough about them. So I want to add that in there as well.
Well, you're a legend out here, and people love you. People love hearing from you, and we appreciate you, Dave, as always. Thanks so much, man.
Bob and Dave, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.